Do you ever find yourself hesitating, unable to commit to your goals or your relationships? You're not alone. In today's video, we're going to unravel the mysteries behind why you might be holding yourself back from commitment, and more importantly, what you can do about it. Hey, welcome back. And if you're new, my name is Bennett. I'm here to just share some ideas that have helped me move the needle just a little bit in my own life. Hope you find it beneficial. Before we dive into why it is you can't commit, we have to understand what commitment really means. And for so many people, they just don't really understand it. They throw the word out like it's just something easy that they can and should be doing. But when push comes to shove, when they have to commit to something, that's when they end up jumping ship and start to change course. The way I like to teach my clients about what commitment really means is the fact that we're committing until period. If we can start to understand that a commitment, our word is our bond, the thing we say we're going to do is going to be done by us, then we can start to understand the energy that is needed to be brought into that commitment itself. It's why when we set goals, we're only setting goals in a way that we can control them. We're not setting result-oriented goals, but we're setting actionable goals that we can do certain actions. And based on our calculations, hopefully we can get a certain result. So when we commit to those actions, as long as we take those actions, reasonably we should get X, Y, and Z. If we don't get X, Y, and Z, it's not because of the actions we've taken, it's probably because of the assumption or the knowledge that we know about that specific subject. And then what we really have to do is just tweak the direction we're going in terms of the actions that are necessary to get the results that we want. But for so many people, they judge themselves based on not getting the results, and then they think they're not committing when they're really judging themselves against the wrong thing in the first place. Understanding that everything we commit ourselves to is going to be something that we should be able to control. So for example, if somebody wants to commit to a relationship, what they're really doing is they're committing to the actions that they can control in order to enhance the relationship. It's very possible that the other partner messes up, and that's their issue of not committing. But just because you say no and don't do certain things, but as long as you take those specific actions, those are going to be the commitment that you can actually do. So understanding that we are going to commit until period, that is going to be the basis of what it is we're going to be talking about. Now let's talk about why it is that you're not committal. The first idea when it comes to somebody who's not able to commit is usually because there's some type of fear that is going on there. You see, fear of failure is a real thing. People get so scared because they're going to mess up, that they're going to not succeed at the thing that they want to or think that they could succeed at. And because of that, it holds them back. And because of those emotions, we don't allow ourselves to take certain actions. And when we start to move forward just a little bit, we get scared and we start to turn the other way. And that's where we start to build the story in our minds that we're somebody who can't commit. What we have to understand is that in order to succeed, we're going to have that risk. We're going to have to put ourselves out there just a little bit. Allowing ourselves to take that initial step, to be courageous in the moment, is going to be the thing that's going to be able to shift so much for us. For too many people, they're so scared to get a little bit uncomfortable when it comes to the action. So once they feel that discomfort, they start to shift. On a similar note, imposter syndrome runs the same way. Imposter syndrome is that feeling that you don't really belong, that your boss gives you a raise, but you're like, I can't be a manager. I can't manage different people. Or somebody asks you to step up in the community, and for some reason, you don't feel like you're the one who's capable. So that's really imposter syndrome, a feeling that you're getting because you're scared to take the action because you don't think that you're worthy of doing it. And what we have to understand when it comes to imposter syndrome is that imposter syndrome, that feeling that you get inside, is honestly a beautiful emotion. It's expanding you. It's telling you, hey, buddy, you're not ready, but this is going to help stretch you to become the person that you want to become. You're feeling nervous because this thing that you want to be doing, but you're scared, really matters to you. And that is something that could be extremely beneficial. So just because you feel uncomfortable doesn't mean that it's a wrong or bad feeling. And regarding the fears that we might have, fear of success is a very tricky one. You see, for so many people, they're scared about what it might bring for them. And what we have to understand and what we have to realize is that when it comes to fear of success, that fear is just there to protect you. It's protecting something bigger. I was one time talking to a client and he was telling me how he was so scared to grow his business. And after speaking for a while, we realized it was this idea of fear of success, because he had this equation in his mind that if he would become successful, that he would have to spend more time on his business. And if he spends more time on his business, it's going to take away from his family time. And his family was extremely important to him. It was one of his biggest priorities. So he kept self-sabotaging himself in order not to become successful because he didn't want to really sacrifice his family's life for that. What we started to do was start to just shift the different beliefs that he had. that just because you're going to become more successful doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have to spend more time. Maybe the opposite is true, and you'll be able to have more time to spend with your family. And by shifting these beliefs just a little bit, that could start to be the thing that starts to help us to move forward and take that action that we want. And for so many of us who think we can't commit, it's because we have this story in our minds. We tell ourselves that we can't commit because of X, Y, and Z commitment that we made when we were younger. And what we have to realize is that we have to break that story. We have to break that belief about ourselves. So if you tell yourself that I'm not somebody who can commit, we have to ask ourselves, what are those things that we have committed to? What are the things we said we were going to do, even as simple as doing the dishes? And by taking those actions, allowing ourselves to move forward in that way, we'll be able to continue to build the story that we want to build in order to allow ourselves to become more committed. The next reason why so many people aren't able to commit is because they're not taking the proper action. They have certain expectations of what success really means, of what is really necessary, but because they don't understand what they really need to be doing, they end up not succeeding, and then they blame it on themselves, which is partially true, but it's just because they had the wrong expectation. If I told you as long as you took 10,000 basketball shots, you'll be able to make it to the NBA. After 1,000 of them, you're not going to be disappointed that you haven't made the NBA yet, but it's because your expectation is set properly. But for somebody who thinks that once they hit 1,000, then they'll be good enough to go to the NBA, of course they're going to be disappointed. So we have to understand that if we're setting the wrong expectation, that's only going to hurt us and not allow us to take the action that we want. If you're somebody who relates to that and has a hard time taking the proper action, let me know if you just hit the subscribe button down below. The third reason why you might not be so committed is because you don't really want to do the thing that you're planning on doing. How many times has somebody taken a job, but it wasn't the job that they wanted, but because of that, they don't get committed to the job? But we have to realize is that if we don't want to be doing that thing, it makes so much sense about why we might not want to be doing it and why we don't want to be committed to it in the first place. It could be because somebody else is convincing us to do that, like a parent, or it might be because we have to do it for some other reason. But if we could start to recognize that, hey, the reason why I'm not committed is because this isn't something that I want to be doing, that could be a great indicator of why it hasn't been working out yet. That doesn't mean you're not committed. All that might mean is just you haven't found the right one yet. Understanding that was such a breakthrough for me because so many times I didn't commit myself to something, but I realized that it wasn't because of me, it was because of the situation that I was in. Changing our perspective about that could be something that could really start to shift what it is that we want to be doing. And the final reason why it is that you might not be committing is because your goals might be too big. When I was younger, I used to always make very big goals, but the steps that I would also make were also very big. And all that did was break my confidence over and over and over again because I wasn't able to do something that somebody else was able to do, but I didn't realize that I didn't yet have the skills to allow myself to do that thing 5 or 6 steps ahead of where I was. Once I started to realize that I need to really make the steps smaller, it would allow me to build that momentum up to see the success that I really wanted. For so many people, they don't realize that the things that they're setting are really just setting themselves up for failure because they're not setting them up properly. We're not committing ourselves properly. And similarly, a lot of the commitment that we have is very unknown. Because we don't really know what we're committing to, we don't allow ourselves to see the success that we want. And that is a massive problem when it comes to commitment. We have to get as clear as possible and understand what it is that we're going to be doing. So what are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to become more committed? So here are my top 3 tips that you can start to use to allow yourself to become a more committed person. The first idea is to plan for the hard times. We have to understand that difficulty is going to happen. There are going to be things that are going to pop up that we had no idea were going to happen. But if we could recognize that issues will arise, that could help give us the strength to understand when those things do happen, that it's the time to keep moving forward as opposed to falling back and getting off of the commitment that we had. So many people have that wrong expectation. They see difficulty and then they run the other way because it's not what they thought it was going to be like. The second thing is if you do hit that difficulty and you do fall off the horse, you have to get up as quickly as possible. Self-doubt is one of those things that really trap so many different people. And the longer it is that you're staying down, the more it is you're going to be beating yourself up. What we have to realize is that we have to get ourselves up as quickly as possible to continue taking action, to build that momentum, to keep moving forward with the commitment that we have. If we could commit until period, even if we fall off the horse, we can get back on and move forward. Just because we fell off doesn't mean we are not committing anymore. It just might mean you need a break. It just might mean you need a different strategy. But recognizing if you could get up as quickly as possible is going to be the thing that's going to help propel you to move forward and to stay committed to the goal that you have. And the third and final tip is when we want to become a more committed person, let's start with small commitments. I know it might sound silly, but if you could just commit yourself to doing one small thing like clean up your room or to make your bed in the morning for a week, you're going to start to see certain patterns. You're going to start to be able to commit to certain things that are smaller and might be a little bit more easy. And by doing that, we're going to be able to build that muscle to show ourselves that we are somebody who can commit. We are somebody who could say something and we could follow through whatever it is that we're looking to do. We have to rebuild the story in our minds for all the things that we can commit to. And the bigger the items get, the more commitment and the more the muscle is going to get. And if we could slowly build up to it, it's going to allow us ourselves to become more committed and stay on path with the things that we want to be staying on path with. And that's why if you're somebody who's looking to stay committed, and you're looking to really improve other areas of your life also, make sure to take a look at this next video where we talk about improving your own personality.